Please.
Good morning, Vice Chancellor Madam. कैसी हैं आप?
Good morning, madam.
Good morning, Madam. Belated Happy Independence Day to you.
Yeah, belated happy 77th Independence Day.
Thank you.
Yesterday, Honorable Founder President was on the campus.
Anji, I saw that whole thing. It was beautifully organized by you as always. Very well done, and congratulations to you, Madam, for Amity University, Uttar Pradesh.
Thank you.
Ma'am, with your permission, shall we start?
Yes, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Very good morning. Respected Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, Founder President, Amity Education Group, a true patriot and a guiding light to all the Amitian, Dr. Atul Chauhan, Chancellor, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, Professor Dr. Balvinder Shukla, Vice Chancellor, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, Lieutenant General Dr. S.K. Gadiog, Ati Viswis Seva Medal, Director General, Amity Institute of Defence and Strategic Studies, Brigadier Dr. Anand Kumar Tiwari, Director and Professor, Amity Institute of Defence and Strategic Studies, and Professor Dr. Nirupama Prakash, Director, AISS, and our esteemed guest, Dr. S.K. Pachauri, Former Secretary to Government of India, and Major General Devesh Gaur, panelists, faculties, and student fraternity. The aim of today's congregation is to introduce and inculcate a sense of respect for the symbols of freedom, to awaken the feeling of patriotism in the mind of every citizen. Remembering the freedom fighters and their contribution to the nation building, on this auspicious occasion of 76th anniversary of independence, the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, which is being celebrated with befitting grace and fervor at Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, starting from 14th August to 16th August. We will inaugurate the event with an inaugural address by Brigadier Dr. Anand Kumar Tiwari, a fully accomplished, multi-domain, talented veteran and an academician. He has 33 years of vast experience in educational administration. He did his PhD from University of Pune in Chinese geopolitics and recently published a very contemporary book, Chinese Geopolitics in the 21st Century, a post-pandemic perspective. He is the recipient of Chief of Army Staff Commendation Card. He now leads the AIDSS at Amity University, Noida as Professor and Director. May I now request Brigadier Dr. Anand Kumar Tiwari to kindly address us, please. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Colonel Bakshi. Hello. Our Honorable Founder President, sir, Honorable Chancellor, sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Madam, Honorable Director General, Lieutenant General S.K. Gadiog, sir, Major General Devesh Gaur, Dr. S.K. Pachauri ji, Dr. Nirupama Prakash, Colonel Rajan Bakshi, all distinguished panelists, faculty, students, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me take this opportunity to welcome all of you here on this forum. Today we are here to celebrate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav by remembering the contributions of our freedom fighters who contributed immensely in the struggle for independence, which was pivotal in achieving nation's freedom from British colonial rule. These brave individuals played a significant role in various ways, collectively shaping our course of history. Here are some of the key aspects I would like to highlight as their contribution, which I am more than sure which will be further elaborated by our speakers who will come to speak to you. Foremost thing has been inspiration and leadership. The kinds of personalities we had as freedom fighters like Mahatma Gandhi ji, Jawaharlal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, Bhagat Singh, and many such personalities who served as inspirational leaders, who motivated millions of Indians to unite against the colonial oppression. They provided a clear vision, ideology, and direction to freedom movement. They were able, the second contribution has been their mass mobilization. And the way they have mobilized the country, where the literacy rate was not that much, and you can imagine that awakening towards the rulers' oppression was also not as much. Mobilizing the people was a mammoth task, which they undertook upon them. And most of all, it was Mahatma Gandhi who mobilized the masses. You are aware about the Champaran movement. Then comes the kind of weapons they used, which was never heard of. For example, civil disobedience and non-violent resistance. You can imagine, before that, never ever in the history, these two weapons of non-violence were ever used during any kind of struggle for independence. Everywhere else, you will find people taking up arms. Now, the other political movements which were carried out in terms of organizing themselves into party. For example, in general, the public organized themselves alongside the Indian National Congress. The Muslim fraternity organized themselves in Muslim leagues, and so many other organizations were formed. So that has been one of the greatest contributions, that how the society could be organized for the purpose of freedom struggle. That is what was the outcome of this freedom movement. Then they ignited the youth of that time. And you are aware that since the youth are full of energy, their means were bound to be violent. And those violent means were also, not to be discredited. Their violent means must have been equally, troublesome to the British rule, which we, although today, discredit, or to some extent we don't, recognize them as much as we should. And we know about Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, Subhash Chandra Bose, who injected new energy into the movement. They represented the aspiration of youth and played a crucial role in radicalizing and energizing the youth. Then you are also aware that while the violent movement brought a lot of energy, but non-violent movement brought in a lot of international support, where people recognized Gandhiji's contribution and the means by which was very innovative. People started believing in those means, non-violent means, and they realized that, yes, this is also the way whereby we can tell our views without being violent or without harming anyone else. So to that regard, we actually gathered a lot of international support. Then no freedom fight can go without sacrifices and martyrdom. The Indian youth, young or old, among old, Lala Lajpat Rai, among youth, you can have innumerable number to count. They all sacrificed their lives, and they endured imprisonment, torture, even sacrifices to their lives for the cause of independence. Here, I would like to mention one of my personal experience of my grandfather, who has been in British jail for 14 years, all put together. So we cannot, forget the sacrifices of our forefathers in attaining the freedom. Now, it is often said that nationalism was one of the beautiful outcome of the freedom struggle. Freedom fighters instilled among the people the collective identity, emphasized the importance of unity and the cultural heritage which has been actually consolidating everyone else or making everyone come together for the purpose of freedom. Then the kind of awareness with regard to social reforms, because while the struggle was going on, it was realized that society was full of such kind of customs and traditions which were required to be shredded. And during that time, and the kind of injustice which was, and then the kind of injustice which was being created by the oppressors and rulers. People were just taking everything in their stride. So they were made aware about that you should not take oppression in your stride. Alongside that, when the party politics started, came in the sense of democracy or democratic values. India has learned democratic values. Otherwise, it was generally governed either by the British or by the feudal lords of Rajwadas. So we have realized that what is the value of democracy, because the parties were formed and they were actually contesting through peaceful means for their popularity. So the core ideal, these are the core ideals and the contributions of the freedom fighters. And last, in the summary, I would like to say that the contribution of our freedom fighters were instrumental in galvanizing the Indian population, inspiring them to demand their rightful place in the world as free and sovereign nation. Their unwavering commitment, sacrifices, and strategic efforts led to eventual end of British colonial rule. We are here to celebrate their contributions and honor them here. And I'm more than sure that it is undebatable. Their contribution is undebatable. And we must pay homage to those who have sacrificed their lives at this juncture. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I would now request Colonel Bakshi to please invite our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Madam, for her special address. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your inaugural address on this auspicious occasion of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, as we are proudly remembering our freedom fighters and their contribution. I will now briefly introduce a very eminent personality, Professor Dr. Balwinder Shukla, Vice Chancellor, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh. An outstanding administrator, a brilliant academician, a vivid researcher, and a far-sighted visionary, Professor Dr. Balwinder Shukla is popularly known for her multifaceted insights, humility, and leadership skills. She is MTech from IIT Kharagpur and PhD from Queen's University, UK. She has been one of the key strategists instrumental in the exponential growth of Amity higher education. She is driven by the innate passion, determination, perseverance,
There was a beautiful film was sent by group captain Kapil Shukla ji, where it was the life of a soldier during the service and after the service, which made me to realize the kind of the tough, disciplined, and the patriotic life which they live as a serviceman, and then their struggle to adjust later on in the civil life. So my salute to all the defense personnel from all the walks who really dedicate their life for the, protecting the nation, Jal, Thal, and Nab from all areas. And today, while we are discussing, deliberating about the freedom fighters and their contribution, and we all know that India has been first because of invasions, been ruled for almost 4,000 years, and then the colonial British rule also was for very long. It was the freedom struggle started in a very concerted effort from the, in 1857, and ultimately we got our freedom on 15th August 1947. But during these almost for 9 decades, many freedom movements have been, and a lot of people, they have devoted their entire life only for the freedom struggle, and against, especially against the British colonial rule, which was marked by non-violent resistance, unity and diversity, and visionary leaders which we had. And it also showcased the power of collective will and the resilience in achieving the independence and inspiring global movements. And yesterday I was just going through that how many countries really around that time when India has got the freedom, there have been number of other countries who also got the freedom around that time. And today, when we look at that, where as a country we have reached in our development, vis-a-vis the other countries who have achieved their freedom and their development, whether it is Israel, though they had nothing, but today they have really become, a country looking at their needs, and they have done accordingly the developments. So while we were having, I think that a lot of people have contributed. Some are the unsung heroes, some are the uh, uh, very well-known heroes of the struggle. It was not only the male citizens only contributed in the freedom fighter, but where we have also the many notable female the leaders who also have immensely contributed in the freedom struggle. And our salute to all the freedom fighters. Notable when we talk that Mahatma Gandhi ji, the father of the nation, when he has emphasized on the self-reliant, rural empowerment, unity among diverse communities, which laid the foundation of the united India. Though it was not only the freedom of India, but it was also the partition, where the Bharat or the Hindustan got divided into three parts. Two were Pakistan, East Pakistan and West Pakistan, and one Bharat, though the East Pakistan later on became Bangladesh. But the India, the Bharat land got divided into the three parts, though those were the other two were mainly for the one particular community. But again, it was our leaders who said, the Muslim who want to stay back in India, they can stay back in India, despite creation of East Pakistan or the West Pakistan, because we wanted that the character of India remain as a secular, where all communities, all religion, all faith live and thrive together and build the nation. And our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru ji, who also, as per his vision, he laid the groundwork for the India's scientific and technological progresses, and we have seen this so many in the scientific establishment, whether it's result and development or whether it's education, the IIT Kharagpur and others were established under his visionary leadership. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, who were the key figure in the integrating the princely states into the newly independent India, ensuring its territorial integrity. It was his diplomatic and administrative skills helped consolidate diverse regions and cultures under the one unified nation. And we have also the Bhagat Singh, who was the a revolutionary who believed in armed struggle against British oppression. He also played a key role in awakening the youth to the cause of independence, sacrificed his life for the nation, and his courage and commitment inspired generations to come. Even today, he is a hero for the youth. We cannot forget Subhash Chandra Bose ji, who believed in armed struggle and formed the Indian National Army to fight the Britishers and along the Axis powers against British colonial rule during the World War II. And where his very popular slogan was that "Give me blood, I shall give you freedom," which truly ignited the spirit of sacrifice among the Indians. Dr. Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad was a very prominent leader who worked towards Hindu-Muslim unity. He played a crucial role in the education sector, advocating for scientific and modern education for the masses. He also became the first Minister of Education in the independent India. Rani Lakshmi Bai, Jhansi Ki Rani, who also was a symbol of resistance against the British during the Indian Revolution of 1857. She bravely led her troops in battle, and her refusal to surrender inspired the nation's struggle for freedom. The Rajaji, popularly known the Mr. C. Rajgopalachari, who has worked very closely with the father of the nation, Gandhiji, and after independence served as the first Indian Governor General and later the Chief Minister of Madras State. And his contribution in the area of economic and administrative reforms is notable. Lala Lajpat Rai ji, who promoted the Indian industries and education and left lasting impact on the society. We all know that British socialist Annie Besant was a great supporter of Indian self-rule, and she played a significant role in the Indian National Congress and the Home Rule movement, and contributed to the Indian awakening. And so the freedom fighters, we have a long list when we talk about all the freedom fighters. Each one of them, they have sacrificed their life. So today, when we are organizing this conference, we must remember whether it is Dada Bhai Naroji, or whether it's Lal Bahadur Shastri ji, or Bal Gangadhar Tilak ji, or Ashfaqullah Khan ji, or Nana Sahib, or Sukhdev, or Mangal Pandey, or Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, or Ram Prasad Bismil, or Chandrasekhar Azad, Begum Hazrat Mahal, or and many others who have sacrificed their life and contributed in the freedom struggle of India. But today, when we have achieved the 77 years of independence, and yesterday our Honorable Prime Minister have gave that the decision which we take today, which is going to shape the nation for next 1,000 years. And therefore, at being the education institution, and we need to really think that through our education, how we inculcate the values of patriotism in the students, that the first thing for the nation before thinking about self. And our Honorable Founder President, our Honorable Chancellor has always emphasized that MITians be the success story and contribute to the economic development, contribute to the societal needs, and how we can make this nation economically developed nation, and also that every citizen of the country be happy and contributing. And I think the MITians, by having those virtues and the education, whether it's the human values and community engagement kind of courses, whether we talk about the ability enhancement or the skill enhancement courses, and also doing the human values quarter celebration, that also not only give the learning to the student, but also give them the lifelong the dream that how we contribute to the nation building, and through innovation, through research, through entrepreneurship. And I'm sure that today's, because I could see in the program schedule, there's a large number of students who are going to speak about the various freedom fighter heroes. So it's not only our faculty colleagues are speaking, but we have the students also are speaking on this. And I would like to congratulate Dr. Tiwari and General Gadhok and Dr. Bakshi for taking this initiative and making the student to also speak. And this will not only give them insight into the life of these freedom fighters, but it will also inspire and motivate them that how they should also make a commitment to the nation building and ready to sacrifice their lives for the growth and for the nation. And so as our Honorable Prime Minister have said, that by 2047, when we complete the centenary, that India will be the fully developed, self-reliant nation. And I think that is the golden period for all the youth of today. And I'm sure that they are going to contribute immensely and also fulfill the dream of Honorable Founder President, that where every Amitian will be contributed to the nation building, and the dream of Honorable Chancellor that the Amitians will work in a manner. They will not only be the success story, but they will also make a difference in the world to make this world a better place to live. With this, I wish all the very successful conduct of this seminar on freedom fighters and their contributions for the great learning of Amitians. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. So kind of you that you have raised.
Let's give a big round of applause. Thank you very much, esteemed Vice Chancellor ma'am, for your passionate discourse, inspiring us on this solemn occasion of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. We are fortunate to have with us Lieutenant General Dr. S.K. Gadhok, Ati Visis Seva Medal. Presently, he is located at Wellington, Coonoor, and he will be addressing us from there. General Gadhok is Director General AIDSS and ACDSA. He is Vice President ASTIF and Vice Chairman of AIDT. He was commissioned into Indian Army on 11th June 1977. He served to President as ADC. He commanded a guard unit, an armored brigade, and a division, beside many prestigious staff and command appointments. He served as logistic advisor to Botswana Defense Forces at Gaborone, Botswana. He was specifically selected by Chief of Army Staff as Commandant Defense Service Staff College, where he received many prestigious awards. He was awarded with Ati Visis Seva Medal for his distinguished service. In a true sense, he is a scholar and a warrior. May I request him to kindly address us, please. General Gadhok, sir.
Thank you very much, Colonel Dr. Rajan Bakshi, for your introduction. I feel very elated. And of course, with the Vice Chancellor having spoken of Amity University of Uttar Pradesh, there's very less to be spoken about and less had to be done. And I will only say her perspective was very coherent, and the clarity with which she expressed herself about the freedom fighters and all the supreme sacrifices which were undertaken by the country to get freedom, basically, so as to ensure that we maintain our freedom, equality, and justice with blood and honor. Ladies and gentlemen, I would firstly like to thank the Honorable Founder President, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, Amity Education Group, the Chancellor, Dr. Atul Chauhan, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Balvinder Shukla, and all others, head of departments, pro-vice chancellors, and of course, the very eminent faculty and student fraternity, the brilliant students of not only my department, but also all the other departments who are attending today of Amity University. A very good morning from me from the beautiful, salubrious climes of Wellington. Well, I can only tell you that just day before yesterday, I spoke in fact, on horrors of partition to one of the finest public schools here. They invited me as chief guest, and that is at Lovedale, because the headmaster had told me that very few people had obtained a standing ovation in lieu of one of the very few in thousands of guest speakers who had a standing ovation at Lovedale. So the students would love to invite you again, and after being a Commandant Staff College. So I spoke actually on partition and freedom fighting. I'll only like to take a minute and say that our first Prime Minister, Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru, well, I think our entire encomiums should be showered on him, whether he was the first Prime Minister. It's very difficult actually to perform reform and transform what the Prime Minister said. The present Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, said very correctly in perspective from the ramparts of the Red Fort. If you all heard him yesterday, well, the credit does go to our first Prime Minister. And I must say that people often do not make very much a mention of so-called half-naked fakir by the colonials. Well, let me tell you, he's the most venerated, our first father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. He was the one who came back from South Africa and galvanized the whole country. Actually, the Quit India movement and all those, what was mentioned by our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Madam, and of course, Brigadier Dr. Tiwari in perspective. We must not forget Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, because if he wasn't there, I think the integration of the states would have been very difficult. Subhash Chandra Bose, the INA consecrator, the valor of the revolutionary, Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, Lagat Sehdev, Udham Singh, Lala Lajpat Rai, and of course, we cannot forget Maulana Azad, which the Vice Chancellor mentioned. It's rather difficult to get the fabric of secularism unless and until you're not a very astute politician. We had some, I think, very political heavyweights in the Congress government that time, which was the first government established and which provided the foundational support to India. And I must make a mention because he was one of my very venerated icons, and Viceroy General Lord Mountbatten. He was actually the Lord Mountbatten of Burma, now Myanmar. He was rather benevolent to India and very astute Britisher who listened, I think, to the confabulations which were made by our first Prime Minister to him. And when the Radcliffe line, there were two lines actually, the Durand and the Radcliffe line, when the partition of India was presented to then the chairman and the president of the All India Muslim League. And that happened to be none other than Mr. Jinnah. He was rather livid, and he told Mountbatten that well, all the freedom fighting which had been done by the Hindus as well as the Muslims, he says, you have given me a moth-eaten rag, when he saw the flag and the partition, that memento which was presented to me, to him. And he said, to me, it appears it's matter of nepotism, that you are very, very benevolent to Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru and not to the leader of Pakistan. Well, you can imagine what kind of, I should say, tribulations, what kind of adhesion, what kind of assertiveness was there by all the leaders who wanted to make sure that Hindustan, that is India right now, after having attained 76 years now, completed 75 and on to 76, how we attain this with a lot of, I should say, devastating remarks and a lot of those which were put in by all kinds of politicians who had their vested interests in either side, that is Hindustan and Pakistan. Well, you are well aware, we had two of them, Pakistan, East Pakistan, and then later on gave birth to Bangladesh. But the kind of exodus which took place, I think hats off to people like in Andaman Nicobar Islands, when we see Veer Savarkar, and in the Pantheon of Heroes, you see all the sacrifices by all these people. But do not forget what your Prime Minister said yesterday. I think it was a very epochal speech, wherein he mentioned very correctly that diversity, democracy, and the development which is there awaiting India is most important, and kindly do not go in for corruption, appeasement, and dynastic philosophy in our lives. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very grateful to the organizers of this very fine seminar. I wish you all divine providence and power of wisdom. Please remember that each one of us has to contribute in a very dynamic fashion for duty, honor, and country to this great civilization, the finest, the oldest civilization of India. May God bless each one of you, your families, and generations to come in this millennium. Thank you very much. Har Maidan Fateh. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. It has always been a pleasure and motivational experience to listen to you, sir. Now we should start with the seminar with our panelists. Before I invite our esteemed guest, Major General Devesh Gaur, to talk about the Mahatma Gandhi and his contribution to freedom of India, let me introduce to him. Major General Devesh Gaur was commissioned into Army Education Corps on June 10, 1989. He has 33 years of illustrious career in the Army. He holds a MSc degree in analytical chemistry from Aligarh Muslim University, and during service acquired a diploma in middle level defense management and postgraduate diploma in education management and administration. Students, please may I request, pay attention, don't talk among yourselves. It is very important. At least we should pay respect to our freedom fighters for whom we are collected here and paying our homage to them. Please show some respect. Major General Devesh Gaur embraced a multitudinal instructional, staff, and administrative appointments. Notably, he holds the distinct honor of having served as instructional capacity at 3 distinguished training institutions, that is National Defense Academy, Indian Military Academy, and Officer Training Academy, Chennai. He tenated General Staff Officer education in different capacity at a Mountain Brigade, Regimental Center, Headquarter, Corps in Northeast, and Northern Command. He also held the prestigious appointment of Additional Director General of Army Education and Head of Service of Army Education Corps at Army Headquarters. He was honored with the GOC&C Commendation Card for his distinguished service. He served as the Chairman of Board of Governors at the Army Education Corps Training College and Center, an autonomous institution affiliated with Barkatullah University, Bhopal. He was also a member of the Board of Governors for Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan, New Delhi, and Sainik School Society operating under Ministry of Defense. Presently, he is serving as Assistant Director General, MET Directorate of Military Education and Training at MET University, Uttar Pradesh. Please welcome Major General Devesh Gaur.
Very good morning to all of you. Thank you very much, Colonel Bakshi, for this introduction. Most respected Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, Honorable Founder President, MET Educational Group, a beacon of inspiration and guidance. Dr. Atul Chauhan, esteemed Chancellor, AUUP, Professor Dr. Balwinder Shukla, dynamic Vice Chancellor, Lieutenant General Dr. S.K. Gadiyo, AVSM, DG AIDSS and ACDSA, Brigadier Dr. Anand Kumar Tiwari, Director and Professor AIDSS, Professor Dr. Nirupama Prakash, Director AISS, Honorable Dr. Rajan Bakshi, Director ACDSA, distinguished guests, committed faculty members, and my dear students. On this auspicious occasion, as we gather to celebrate 77th Independence Day, it is an honor for me to address on the topic of freedom fighters and their significant contributions. Today, I stand before you to shed light on one of the most iconic figure in the history of India's struggle for freedom, that is our beloved Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi, also fondly known as Bapu. He was not just a person, but a symbol of non-violence, resistance, righteousness, and a beacon of hope for millions during the difficult journey to attain freedom from British colonial rule. His unwavering dedication, unique philosophy, and pragmatic approach to non-violence left an indelible mark not only on India, but on the entire world. Gandhi's journey began in Porbandar. For some of you, the date may be of importance that he was born in 1869. His early life was marked by quest for truth and deep sense of justice. His experience as a lawyer in South Africa exposed him to the harsh reality of discrimination and racism, ignited his passion for social justice. It was during this time that Gandhiji developed his concept of satyagraha. That is a truth force, which would become the cornerstone of his struggle for freedom. As far as Gandhiji's contribution to the freedom is concerned, there is no question about it. Gandhiji's method of peaceful resistance, civil disobedience, non-cooperation proved to be the formidable tools against the mighty British Empire. He led mass movements such as the Champaran Satyagraha, 1917. This was against forced cultivation of indigo in Bihar. Kheda Satyagraha, 1917 to 18, a no-tax campaign in Kheda village of Gujarat. Khilafat movement, 1919, against injustice done with Turkey. Non-cooperation movement, 1920, against Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Civil disobedience movement, 1930, against salt law. And Quit India movement, 1942, to drive British rulers out of India. One cannot speak of Gandhi without recounting the iconic salt in that salt march that was held in 1930, a journey of 240 miles undertaken by him and his followers. This symbol act and defiance against the British salt tax ignited the flames of rebellion across the nation. Gandhiji's leadership, marked by simplicity and empathy, resonated with the masses and turned into the torchbearers of the freedom movement. Gandhiji emphasis on self-reliance and self-sufficiency as showcased in his advocacy for Khadi was not just a political statement, but also an economic strategy to empower rural communities and strengthen the nation's fabric. He believed that political freedom without economic independence was incomplete. This wisdom still rings true today as we navigate challenges of the sustainable development. Gandhiji's teachings are not bound with the time, they transcend generations and remain relevant even today. In a world often marked by the conflict and division, his philosophy of nonviolence and tolerance offer a path towards resolving disputes and achieving social harmony. His message that change starts from within and that individuals hold the power to transform society remains a guiding light for troubled times. Allow me to share some of the Mahatma Gandhi's timeless quotes that continue to inspire and guide us. Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever. We can learn a lot of from these quotations. You must be the change you wish to see in the world. Another wonderful quote, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Another quote, the strength does not come from physical capacity, it comes from an determined will. Freedom is not worth having if it is not included, and it does not include the freedom to make mistakes. Ladies and gentlemen, the legacy of Mahatma Gandhi extends far beyond the struggle for India's independence. His principle of truth, nonviolence, and compassion continue to guide us and nations towards a more just and equitable world. As we celebrate 77th Independence Day, let us not only remember his remarkable contributions, but also strive to imbibe his teachings in our life. Let us carry forward messages of unity, peace, and social justice so that freedom he fought for remains alive in our hearts and actions. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, General Gaur. Thanks for your deliverance.
Thank you very much, sir, for your immersive speech on our Rashtrapita Mahatma Gandhi. And now, before I invite next speaker, Dr. Swati Shastri, to talk about Rani of Jhansi, let me introduce her. Dr. Swati Shastri worked as assistant professor with Banasthali Vidyapeeth, Rajasthan for 3 years and received gold medal for her PG degree in the presence of late Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam in 2010. She was awarded doctorate degree in history in the presence of Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2016. She was awarded with the Golden Environment Care Ambassador Award and Global Creative Mind Award in the recent year. These are for her contribution to culture, education, and environment. Dr. Swati Shastri is presently working as assistant professor at AISS in Amity University, Uttar Pradesh. Please welcome Dr. Swati Shastri, please.
Namaskar to one and all sitting on the dais and off the dais. So I'm very thankful to the organizers to invite me as the panel speaker. Thank you so much, sir. So Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, which is also known as the Festival of Freedom. It is a year-long commemorative event which has been organized by the Government of India to celebrate. We are celebrating the 77th anniversary of India's independence. This event was officially, it was announced or launched on March 12th in 2021 by our own Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. The aim of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav is to honor the sacrifices which was made by the freedom fighters who led the struggle of India's independence, and also to highlight the progress and achievements of it, as we already know about it. So this also involves a series of events and the initiatives, both the national and the local level. So we are also here to remember remember the journey of our freedom fighters. The major key objective of this Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav is to inspire the spirit of innovation and the creativity among the Indian young, or can say Indian populace. So additionally, we are also here to promote the Indian art, culture, and the heritage. So as everybody must be knowing that we are here to remember the struggle of the freedom fighters and the leaders who played a great role in the independence. So these tributes are not only a way to honor their sacrifices, but also to instill a sense of patriotism and dedication to the country among the young generations. So historical reenactments and the storytelling and the lectures, they are also, being conducted. So I'm highly thankful to all the organizers to actually organize such an event where we can celebrate the freedom, where we can talk about the freedom fighters. Indian freedom movement, it was a large scale campaign which led to an end to British rule in India and its creation as an autonomous nation. Isn't it, students? So before talking about Rani Lakshmi Bai, we can also discuss a few important aspects of the revolt of 1857, which was also called as the Sepoy Mutiny. So this mutiny was a violent uprising against the British rule in India in 1857, and it is also known as the Indian Mutiny. So students and everyone, I can say that in India or in Britain or in the West, this mutiny basically, or can say it was always portrayed as a series of unreasonable and the bloodthirsty uprisings, which was spurred by the falsehood and religious insensitivity. But in India, it has been viewed quite differently. It was the event which has been considered as the first outbreak of an independence movement against the British rule. So this uprising was put down with a method basically her bravery, her leadership, which have left an a remarkable, role in the Indian history. So before discussing about her important role into that, I would like to share two lines that which my father used to teach me. बुंदेले हर बोलों के मुंह हमने सुनी कहानी थी, खूब लड़ी मर्दानी वो तो झांसी वाली रानी थी. So Rani Lakshmi Bai's involvement in the freedom struggle, it was one of the most iconic chapters of her life, And this revolt was also known as the Indian Mutiny or the First War of Independence, as I've already discussed, which is widespread uprising against the British East India Company and the colonial rule. And Rani Lakshmi Bai, which was marked her fearless spirit and her commitment to protecting her kingdom and her own people. So, Maharaja Raja Gangadhar Rao, who was her husband, he has signed a treaty with the British, but, after his death, the British government, they wanted to, sought to annex the Jhansi into her, or can say under their own regime, which was that particular policy was not named as the doctrine of lapse. So which was allowed them, ethically or non-ethically, it is completely up to you guys. You have to read about it. So particularly doctrine of lapse allowed them to seize the territories which is actually without the heir. So Lakshmi Bai fearlessly, she resisted their attempts, the British attempt, and she was determined to preserve her kingdom's sovereignty. So this revolt was basically, it was started in Meerut, and it quickly spread into the various parts of India with the various leaders. So Lakshmi Bai took an active participation in organizing her forces. She has also led her own army, and she has raised, or can say she has also trained her own soldiers and commanded them during the battle. So her courage and strategic, the activities were very much evident in the Battle of Jhansi and also Kalpi, and where she fought violently against the British rule. But despite her, various efforts, Jhansi ultimately it fell to the British in 1858. But Lakshmi Bai, she completely refused to surrender and escape with her forces. She continued to fight. She joined the forces with the other, rebel leaders like Tatya Tope, Rao Sahib, and many more. And they also, along with the other rebel leaders, they engaged in the guerrilla warfare against the British rule. And, Jhansi Lakshmi Bai's determination and the leadership, it inspired countless individuals to join the battle, to join the struggle against the British colonialism. And contribution to the freedom struggle, if we talk about Rani Lakshmi Bai, we can say that beyond her involvement in the revolt of 1857, her legacy continued to influence the Indian freedom struggle and the common people, common mass as well. So her courage and sacrifice, which served as the source of inspiration for subsequent generation of freedom fighter. So one more point I would like to mention here, that there was a journal, the British journal, whose name was Hugh Ross. He said that, he was the one who led the British forces against the Rani Lakshmi Bai, and on her death, when she died, he himself said that here lay the women who was the only men among the rebels. So thank you so much. And we should actually learn a lot from Rani Lakshmi Bai. So thank you so much. And because of the freedom fighters struggle, we are here. We are celebrating the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. We should celebrate it with a pride. So thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Dr. Swati Shastri, for your moving discourse on one of most illustrious freedom fighter of India, Jhansi Ki Rani Lakshmi Bai. We all will always be inspired by her bravery and tenacity while facing the odds. Now I invite a student from AISS, Amrinder Pratap Singh. He is student of BA Honors, Political Science, 3rd semester. and he would talk about Lauh Purush Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Please welcome Amarinder Pratap.
Thank you, sir. Unity is India's strength. Our diversity is our power. When a country at brink of independence was struggling to find its geography of unity, there was one outstanding individual who took upon his shoulder the gigantic task of shaping the edifice of the nation. With his indomitable spirit and relentless effort, he made it possible to integrate hundreds of remarkably diverse states to form the modern nation state of India. The name of the visionary, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Good morning, everyone. I am Amrendra from Political Science Department of Amity Institute of Social Sciences. Wishing you all a joyous and happy Independence Day. With these words echoing in our heart, let us embark on the journey to celebrate our nation's, not only our nation's freedom, but also an extraordinary life of a man who exemplified the very essence of unity and diversity. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, a beacon of inspiration, left an indelible mark on our nation's history, reminding us that our unity is our strength and our diversity is our power. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, a visionary leader whose legacy continues to shape our nation's narrative today. As we celebrate our freedom, let us delve into the captivating story of a man who turned challenges into opportunities and differences into strengths. Imagine the post-independence era, post-independent India, where India resembled like a grand mosaic of princely state, each with its own aspirations and hesitations about joining the new nation. In the midst of this intricate puzzle, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel emerged as a master strategist. Picture this hall as a negotiation room where impassioned discussions seemed to lead nowhere. Sardar Patel's eye glanced on a wall on which an Indian map was hanging, a map marked with scattered states. In a stroke of brilliance, he took a piece of paper and put that paper on that map. With a resolute voice, he declared, "Without these pieces, India is nothing. India is incomplete. Just like this map, it is our duty to unite India." The room fell silent as the power of his words resonated far beyond the boundaries of that map. Yet Sardar Patel's legacy is not confined to diplomatic maneuvers alone. One of his lesser known attributes was his profound understanding of economic decentralization. He envisioned a concept of bottom-up approach of development by empowering local communities and championing their self-sufficiency. The visionary perspective, often overshadowed by the political feats, reveal his multifaceted genius. There is no doubt about Sardar Patel's great contribution in unifying our country. But on top of it, he was a great visionary. He was a visionary who in his time could think beyond his time that what all could go wrong if he do not take those steps which he did. Sardar Patel's journey to unify India wasn't just a political mission. It was a testament of his unyielding spirit and dedication. Often referred as Iron Man of India, Lauh Purush, Sardar Patel's commitment was unwavering. He traveled extensively, meeting local leaders, understanding their concerns, and tirelessly working to build consensus. His innovative method of negotiation and persuasion were rooted in his genuine empathy for the people he represented. But Patel's legacy extends beyond political unity. He understood that a truly united nation could only be built on the foundation of social justice. He fought against untouchability, recognizing that true freedom meant eradicating all forms of discrimination from our nation. Here, I want to share a story of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel's life. Very inspiring story, very less known story. During his time as a lawyer in Ahmedabad, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel took a case of a woman. That woman was subjected to an inhumane treatment by her husband. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel fought for that woman's right and not only secured justice. Here I want to mention that I am talking about the time of 1924 and 25. At that time, divorce was a rarity and women's rights were often overlooked. At that time, he not only secured divorce for that woman, but also ensured that she receives a financial support also. One remarkable aspect of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel's leadership was his ability to connect with people from all walks of life. His simplicity, humility, and commitment made him a beloved figure, not only among politicians, but also among the people, common people. His genuine and down-to-earth demeanor teaches us that leadership is not about grandiosity, but also about connecting with people at human level. As we navigate the complexities of modern world, Let Sardar Patel's legacy guide us. Let us embrace diversity with open arms, break down barriers, and create a more stronger and more united India. His story, a tale of uniting more than 500 princely states, is not just a chapter in history, but an ongoing narrative that encourages us to seek innovation in unity and strength. Thank you for your attention. I wish you all a diverse and prosperous journey ahead. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, Vande Mataram.
Thank you very much, Amrendra, for your insightful coverage of the topic. Well researched. Thank you. Before I invite our next speaker, Dr. Pushpraj Singh, to talk about Lala Lajpat Rai, let me introduce him. Dr. Pushpraj Singh is a researcher and historian specialized in Indian history and religion, ancient Indian culture and religious literature, law and legal institutions. Dr. Singh is an alumnus of Ramjas College, University of Delhi, from where he completed his graduation and post-graduation in history. Subsequently, he obtained his MPhil and PhD degree from the University of Delhi. Dr. Singh also earned the degree of LLB and LLM from University of Kurukshetra and was awarded JRF from ICHR during his PhD. Presently, Dr. Singh is a professor of history at MIT Institute of Social Sciences, MIT University, Noida, with more than 16 years of teaching experience. Dr. Singh has been awarded visiting fellowship to University of Lagos and University of Ibadan, Nigeria, and was also granted a special grant by Human Resource Development Ministry to present his research paper in the University of Central Florida, USA. He has been awarded research projects by almost all major government research funding bodies, including UGC, ICC, SSR, ICHR, and ICPR. He has written more than 20 research papers in leading national and international journals, and 3 of his past publications are Scopus indexed. Please welcome Dr. Pushpraj Singh.
Honorable Vice Chancellor Ma'am, Honorable Head of Institutions, distinguished guests on the dais, off the dais, distinguished panelists, my dear students and colleagues. It's indeed a matter of great privilege and pride that we all are here today, recollecting the memories and sacrifices of our freedom fighters who inspired millions during their lifetimes and who continue to inspire the present generation to live and die for their country. Before I talk about Lala Lajpat Rai, I think the previous speakers, they have talked about the background, they have talked about the previous freedom fighters. Basically, we can understand the history of Indian freedom movement under 4 phases. I'll take this class. The first phase of freedom movement will be 1857 to 1885. That was the time when we see the Great Rebellion. That was the time when we see the peasant movements, different associations starting from a very preliminary attempts to form some associations like Indian Association, ultimately culminating into the foundation of Indian National Congress in 1885. Then we see 1885 to 1907. This is the second stage. During this time, we see the efforts of moderate leadership. We see how the early leadership of Congress, they devised their early programs to strengthen the Indian national movement, to lay down the principles and ideas on which the subsequent generations will carry on the task. And the third phase of Indian national movement, I will say, 1907 to 1919. This was 1907 is important because of this Surat split, in which Indian National Congress got divided into two camps, extremists and moderates. And from 1907 to 1919, that was the time which was dominated by the extremist leadership, but they all were working within the Congress system. And the fourth phase was 1919 to 1947. And that was the period of mass mobilization and Gandhian phase. And during this phase, we notice the culmination of the efforts and struggles of the previous revolutionaries and freedom fighters. Now, talking about Lala Lajpat Rai, he was one such legend who remained relevant from second to fourth phase of Indian freedom movement. He was one such legend who had famously declared that if I had the power to influence Indian journals, then I will ensure that all the journals and newspapers, they are printed with bold letters that milk for infants, food for adults, and education for all. This sums up the psychology, this sums up the philosophy of Lala Lajpat Rai, who remained relevant, who continued to fight for his entire life. And he was not just a political leader. He was a social reformer. He was an educationist, championing the cause of women's, championing the cause of untouchables, talking about reforms, talking about giving rights to depressed classes. Like, he was one of the early scholars, early leaders who said that the knowledge that we see in Vedas should not be restricted to any particular category, should not be restricted to any particular group. Rather, it should be provided to all. It should be provided to all, irrespective of caste, religion, gender, and anything. And he was the one who championed, who personally believed that education is something which has the potential to change the lives of people forever. He started as a lawyer. He had a very humble background. His father in government service as a teacher of Urdu and Persian. His mother was a housewife. And from his father and mother, he inherited a very liberal tradition in which there was equal treatment for all, be it Hindu, be it Muslim. From the very beginning, he was a very academically bright student, enrolling for 2 simultaneous degrees, one at Government College Lahore and another at Rawalpindi. And after finishing his law degree, he started practicing in Hisar Court from 1882 onwards. And it was during this time when he was practicing as a lawyer in Hisar Court that he came under the influence of Dayanand Saraswati and other more freedom fighters. And under his inspiration, he was instrumental in the founding of Dayanand Anglo-Vedic School at Lahore. And during this time, during 1905 when the Swadeshi movement was at its peak. Lala Lajpat Rai, he got involved in the Swadeshi movement. He started transmitting the message of boycott and Swadeshi throughout India. He started writing in newspapers. He started writing in journals about, and particularly Young India movement and all. Young India is a journal and book which he published.
Nobody to leave, please. Please get inside. Back.
So looking at his contribution in spreading the message of Swadeshi and boycott, some of his supporters, they had proposed that he should be made the president of Indian National Congress in 1907. But this couldn't materialize. And in 1907 itself, looking at his revolutionary activities and extreme ideas, he was deported to Mandle, Burma. But as there was no such evidence against him, he was released. And later on, he decided to come back, and he went back to America. While in America, he went to America in 1916. And while in America, he made a representation to US House of Committees, highlighting how India is being misruled by the Britishers in the name of civilizing them. How the colonial masters, they are treating the Indian people with contempt and humiliation. And he presented his demand that Indians are only asking for one fundamental right, that is, the right to live freely, right to live freely in their own country. And the freedom is not something which can be gifted. Freedom is something which is inherent, which is something, a matter of right for all the individuals. So his attempt was, while he was in USA, his attempt was to globalize the issue, to spread awareness about British misrule in India. And he believed that the Indian crisis might appear local for Indians, but it's a global issue. It's a global humanitarian issue. And if the world has to progress, if the world has to be progressive, then India also needs to progress. When the World War started, for some time he was in USA itself, but in 1919 he came back, and 1920 he was elected as the president of Indian National Congress. And it was under his presidency that the non-cooperation resolution and all, they were taken up and they were passed. From 1920 to 1928, till his death, he continued to write in journals, he continued to internationalize the problem. And as we all know that in 1928, Simon Commission was appointed. And Simon Commission, this was an all-white commission. And the Indians had serious misgivings regarding its composition, whether they will be able to do justice with or not. So the Simon Commission was boycotted wherever it visited. And when the Simon Commission visited Lahore, Lala Lajpat Rai, or Punjab Keshri, as we call him, he led a very peaceful procession to oppose the Simon Commission. And there he was met by James Scott. James Scott was the superintendent of police who ordered lathi charge and personally brutally attacked Lala Lajpat Rai. And he couldn't recover from those blows. He died after 18 days. But on the same day he was attacked, he addressed the crowd without leaving. And he had declared that with every blow on me, the Britishers are nailing their coffin. And his words proved to be true. And we all know that India got freedom. So when we look at Indian freedom, it's hard to say that it's the result or it's the handiwork of any one person. There were millions, some popular, some unpopular, some unheard. Everyone collectively contributed, everyone collectively participated. And Lala Lajpat Rai, we remember him today as one of those participants who made Indian national movement and Indian freedom struggle the motto of their life. Thank you very much for giving time to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pushpraj Singh. It is always enlightening to hear about heroes of our freedom movement from a learned academician like you. Now I invite a student from AIDSS MA third semester, Siani Mondal. She would deliver her discourse on Shahid-e-Azam Sardar Bhagat Singh. Please welcome Siani.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, let us remember and honor a brave soul who left an indelible mark on the pages of our history, Shahid Bhagat Singh. They may kill me, but they cannot kill my ideas. They may crush my body, but they cannot crush my spirit, is one of the most popular quotes by Bhagat Singh. His name resonates not just as a revolutionary, but as a symbol of courage, determination, and unwavering commitment to the cause of India's freedom. Bhagat Singh was one of the greatest freedom fighters in the Indian history. He was born in Sandhu Jatt family in Punjab on 28 September 1907. He comes from the lineage of freedom fighters. He was born to Sardar Kishan Singh, who was also involved in the struggle for the fighters. Inspired by his families and in support of Mahatma Gandhi, he left his schooling at a very early age of 13. He devoted the rest of his life to uprooting the British from Indian land. Bhagat Singh, a young man with a fire in his heart and a vision in his mind, dedicated his life to struggle against the colonial oppression. He was not just a freedom fighter. He was a thinker, a philosopher, and a harbinger of change. His actions were not driven by personal gains, but profounded love for his countries and a burning desire to set it free from the chains of foreign rule. At a tender age, Bhagat Singh understood the power of resistance. He realized the passive submission to injustice was not the path of liberation. He believed in the power of action and in the strength of individual to challenge the might of an empire. His audacious act, like the protest of Simon Commission and the throwing of non-explosive bombs in the Central Legislative Assembly, were not intended to harm lives, but to awaken a dormant nation from its slumber, to make a statement against the British colonial government. They were protesting the Public Safety Bill and trade dispute, which would give the British government more power to repress political dissent. The bombing caused no injuries, but it got attention of the entire nation and the world. As the three were arrested, tried, and sentenced to death, he popularized the term Inqilab Zindabad, which means long live revolution. He was also regarded as Shahid-e-Azam. Bhagat Singh's most profound contribution was his unwavering belief in the unity of India. He saw beyond the divisions of caste, religion, and language, advocating for united front against the British Raj. He recognized that true strength of the nation lies in its diversity, and his writings and actions reflect his commitment to the transcending these divisions. With respect to J.P. Saunders' case, Bhagat Singh was charged murder accusations. Along with other freedom fighters, the trial for this case began in July 1929. All of the freedom fighters were imprisoned and sentenced to jail in the Lahore Central Jail. All the prisoners, including Bhagat Singh, protested against the ill treatment that they received and demanded better treatment, being political prisoners. Many senior leaders, such as Jawaharlal Nehru, came to see them and express their hurt. Subsequently, Bhagat Singh went on a fast for 116 days, but eventually had to end it when his father and other Congress leaders requested him. Due to a partial trial, Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, and Sukhdev were all given death sentences. There were many protests from the other Indian leaders demanding a reduced sentence, but they failed. An order to hang all three of them was released. The execution was to happen on 23rd March 1931, but it was carried out a day before. Bhagat Singh, while getting hanged, chanted his slogan of "Down with British imperialism." As the date of the sentence was decided on 23rd March, this day is now celebrated as Martyrs' Day, to remember the sacrifices of Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, and Sukhdev. Bhagat Singh was famously given the nickname of Shahid Bhagat Singh. As we remember Bhagat Singh's legacy, let us not just simply reverse his memories, but imbibe his spirit. Let us draw the strength from his fearlessness and conviction. Let us strive to be responsible citizens which uphold the values of justice, equality, and freedom. Let us stand up against the injustice in all forms, and just as Bhagat Singh did, and contribute to the betterment of our society and nations. In the annals of history, Bhagat Singh's name will forever shine as a guiding light, showing us the path of righteousness and the power of a determined individual. As we remember this great revolutionary, let us dedicate ourselves to ideals he lived and died for, ideals that continue to echo through the ages, inspiring us to the change we wish and see our beloved nations. Thank you, Jai Hind.
Last row, please. You in the corner, you guys are just sleeping and talking among each other. Please refrain. Pay attention here. Thank you very much, Yani, for your talk on Sardar Bhagat Singh, who has always been the youth icon to fight against the injustice. Now I invite another student from AIDSS, MA third semester, Jagriti Goswami. She will deliver the talk on Ram Prasad Bismil. Please welcome Jagriti Goswami.
Thank you, sir. As quoted by Ram Prasad Bismil, even if I have to face death 1,000 times for the sake of my motherland, I shall not be sorry. O Lord, grant me 100 births in India, but grant me this too, that each time I may give up my life in the service of the motherland. Ram Prasad Bismil was born on 11 June 1897 in a village in Uttar Pradesh, Shahjahanpur district, to his father Murlidhar and mother Mulmati. He was among the most noteworthy Indian freedom fighter who resisted British colonial forces till his last breath. Born into a Rajput Tomar family, Ram Prasad Bismil learned Hindi from his father and Urdu from a Maulvi who lived nearby. His exposure to multiple languages developed his instincts as a writer and poet at a very early stage of his life. During his childhood, he joined the Arya Samaj founded by Dayanand Saraswati and became a prolific writer and poet, penning patriotic verses in Hindi and Urdu under pen names like Agyat, Ram, and one that is most known, Bismil, meaning wounded or healed. At the age of only 18, he penned the poem Mera Janam, meaning my birth, venting out his anger over the death sentence headed out to one of the Arya Samaj missionaries. After graduating from school, Bismil got involved in politics. Bismil was not willing to negotiate or beg for his country's freedom against the British. In fact, he was ready to take it by force. To achieve his ends, he started a revolutionary organization called Matrivedi, the altar of the motherland. He wanted to organize the youth of the country to fight the British government. Ram Prasad Bismil was involved in the Manpuri conspiracy of 1918, in which police found a few young people, including Bismil, selling books that were not prescribed by the government. He published a pamphlet titled Deshwasiyon Ke Naam and distributed it along with his poem Manpuri Ki Pratigya. In February 1920, when all the prisoners in the Manpuri conspiracy case were freed, Bismil returned home to Shahjahanpur. There he initially worked for the Congress-led non-cooperation movement, but after Gandhi called it off due to the incident at Chauri Chaura in 1922, Bismil decided to start his own party. Thus, the Hindustan Republican Association was formed and Bismil was one of the chief founders. In addition, its constitution was drafted chiefly by Bismil himself. The manifesto, largely penned down by Bismil, was officially released on January 1st, 1925 and titled Krantikari, meaning revolutionary. It proclaimed the immediate object of the Revolutionary Party in the domain of politics is to establish a federal republic of United States of India by an organized and armed revolution. The train robbery at Kakori in August 1925 was Hindustan Republican Association's first major action. Revolutionaries planned to rob the train, which often carried treasury bags meant to be deposited in the British treasury. On August 9, 1925, as the train was passing the Kakori station, around 10 revolutionaries, including Ram Prasad Bismil, entered the train. They looted the treasury bags and escaped to Lucknow. They were successful in the attempt, but were arrested within a month of the attack under the Kakori conspiracy case. The legal process lasted 18 months. Later, Bismil was awarded the death sentence. In Lucknow Central Jail, Bismil wrote his autobiography, considered as one of the finest works in the Hindi literature, and also the song Mere Rang De Basanti Chola. After an 18 months long trial, Bismil was sentenced to death. The sentence was carried out on December 19, 1927. With his last words, Jai Hind, Ram Prasad Bismil was just 30 years old when he died, but his legacy lives on. With a desire for freedom and revolutionary spirit running in every inch of his body and his poetry, Ram Prasad Bismil was the most notable Indian revolutionary who fought British colonialism and made it possible for the nation to breathe the air of freedom after centuries of struggle against the imperial forces. His poems were not only meant to inspire fellow Indians to join the freedom struggle, they also reflected a deep concern for society and universal principle of equality and human dignity. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Jagrati, for your talk on Ram Prasad Bismil. He was a poet par excellence. His famous couplets, सरफरोशी की तमन्ना अब हमारे दिल में है, देखना है जोर कितना बाजुए कातिल में है. It still moves each one of us deeply. Now I invite student from AIDSS, third semester, Kritika Rao. She will deliver the talk on Aruna Asaf Ali. Kritika, please.
Thank you, sir. Today we gather to honor remarkable souls whose life story are an epitome of courage, dedication, and unwavering commitment to ideals of freedom and social justice. One prominent person being Aruna Asaf Ali, the grand old lady of Indian independence, a beacon of hope during tumultuous times of India's struggle for independence, who left indelible marks on our nation's history. Through her tireless efforts and selfless service, she became a symbol of resilience, inspiring generations to come. Born on July 16, 1909 in Kalka, Punjab, Aruna Asif Ali was nurtured in a family deeply rooted in patriotic values. Her early years were marked by a sense of purpose and conviction that India deserved to be free from shackles of the British colonial rule. Her association with Indian National Congress ignited her passion for change, leading her onto a path of activism. As we journey further into her remarkable life, we unveil chapters that not only recount her personal story, but also reveal her as a shining example of unwavering courage and dedication. Her engagements in the civil disobedience movement and Quit India movement are testaments to strong spirits that stand as inspiration of change in the face of adversity. Her formative years engaged in activism within the Indian National Congress, influenced by visionary leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru. She fearlessly participated in protests and advocated against British colonial rule and passionately strived for India's independence. During the civil disobedience movement, she actively took part in protests, picketing, and public gathering. She stood alongside fellow freedom fighters, embracing non-violence as a weapon of choice. Despite facing arrest and difficulties, resolve only grew stronger, and she emerged as a prominent voice in the movement. The Quit India movement in 1942 marked a pivotal moment in India's fight for independence. Aruna Asif Ali's fearless leadership shone brightly during these times. On August 9, 1942, she proudly hoisted the Indian national flag at the Govalia Tank Maidan in Bombay, igniting a fire of resistance against British rule. Her courage inspired a wave of hope that echoed across the nation. Even after India gained independence in 1947, Aruna Asif Ali's journey was far from over. Her commitment of social welfare, particularly women's rights and education, remained unwavering, and she played a key role in founding the All India Women's Conference and tirelessly worked towards uplifting marginalized sections of society. Aruna Asif Ali's contributions did not go unnoticed, receiving recognitions from both within India and internationally. In 1964, Aruna Asif Ali was honored with the International Lenin Peace Prize for a firm commitment to social justice and world peace. This award, established by the Soviet Union, affirmed her global influence and a dedication beyond India's borders. It emphasized the universality of her ideals and the impact of her efforts in promoting harmony. Her legacy extended further globally when she was awarded the Jawaharlal Nehru Prize for International Understanding in 1991. This recognition highlighted her role for fostering global cooperation and understanding. It acknowledged her contribution of India's freedom struggle as well as to the broader goal of cultivating friendly relations with among nations. In 1992, Aruna Asif Ali received a Padma Vibhushan, one of India's highest civilian awards. This recognition celebrated her exceptional contribution, including her relentless advocacy for women's rights and her dedicated efforts towards social welfare. In 1997, Aruna Asif Ali's legacy reached its pinnacle when she was posthumously awarded the Bharat Ratna, the India's highest civilian award. This prestigious award honored her monumental contribution to India's struggle for independence and her unyielding commitment to social justice. It not only was a tribute to her personal achievement, but also to the ideals that she embodied, ideals that continue to inspire us all. In conclusion, her legacy remains an ever-present source of inspiration, reminding us of the sacrifices made by countless freedom fighters who paved the way for our nation's independence. As we honor their memory, may we be inspired to stand for justice, equality, and betterment of society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kritika, for your talk on Aruna Asif Ali, the grand old lady of Indian independence. Now,
I just pay attention to me. Despite me saying that pay attention to me, the last row in this central column, please get up, the 4 or 5 girls who have always been talking throughout, not listening to anything. Please get up. One in the last row, not to the wall, but before the wall. Please, yes, don't look left and right. Please honor the people who are talking, honor your martyrs. Don't make mockery of this. These 5 girls and 1 boy, they are continuously talking. And there is one lady in the green, she should know she is continuously sleeping. This is not the way to behave here. And you are aware that the Vice Chancellor Madam is watching from there, and I'm getting the messages here. Shameful.
Okay. Before I invite the next speaker, Dr. Madhumita Saha, to talk about Subhash Chandra Bose and Indian National Army, let me introduce her to you all. Dr. Madhumita Saha is an Associate Professor of History at Amity Institute of Social Sciences, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh. She had done her PhD on modern Indian history from Iowa State University, USA. She had been awarded Fulbright doctoral fellowship to work on her PhD. She had years of teaching experience in US and Indian universities. She had also worked as an opinion editor in Word is One News. She had numerous international publications. For her research, she had been awarded a major project by Indian National Science Academy, India. She had also been awarded a conference grant by Indian Council of Historical Research in recent past. She is currently on the International Committee of the US-based Society for the History of Technology. Dr. Saha takes deep interest in history of nationalism and had always been inspired by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Please welcome Dr. Madhumita Saha.
Honorable Vice Chancellor, ma'am, respected HOIs, esteemed organizers and guests, and my dear students, I wish you a very good afternoon. I am thrilled to be part of this event. As we celebrate the 77th Independence Day, I strongly feel that the time is now apt to historicize our beloved freedom fighter. I will strive today to do the same for Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. This is an audacious task, but I will just try, so bear with me. The Indian National Army, or Azad Hind Fauj, holds a significant place in the annals of India's freedom struggle against British colonial rule. It was born out of the tumultuous backdrop of Second World War. The INA, under the leadership of Subhash Chandra Bose, emerged as a compelling force that stirred the hearts and minds of Indians and challenged the hegemony of the British imperial rule. The inception of this national army actually can be traced back to the early 1940s, when Subhash Chandra Bose, a prominent Indian nationalist leader, by them very famous, escaped a house arrest and sought refuge in Germany and later in Japan. In generally, all Indians are aware of that daring escapade, okay? I come from Kolkata. I have visited his house in Elgin Road in South Kolkata, where that black car still stands, which actually his cousin drove from Kolkata to the a railway station close to Asansol, and from there he took a train to Peshawar. So we are all aware of the story. Then comes the next episode of his life, where for 1 year he struggled to convince Germany, and particularly Germany and also Italy, the Axis powers, to help him to raise an army to start a fight against the British colonialist. Now, see, this is not simple bravery born out of romanticism. He had a definite military strategy in mind. He looked at the global conflict. He wanted to seize the occasion. He wanted to seize the occasion and take help of the rising Axis power to upset the British colonial pattern that existed over India and over a huge part of Asia and Africa. Okay. Today in my talk, I would concentrate mostly between 1943, 1945, 2 years of his life, but radical changes, okay? Now, so once he realized that
his cooperation with Germany is not going to work out. He forced them to give him a submarine so that he can cross so many oceans. Just imagine, from Germany down to Japan. By that time in Singapore, Rash Bihari Bose, another very important Indian nationalist, okay, he has already formed the Indian Independence League. And actually, Indian National Army was the creation, INA was creation of Rash Bihari Bose. We often make this mistake. Rash Bihari Bose by that time was a very old man. He was suffering from tuberculosis. He knew that Subhas is struggling in Germany. So he in this part of the world wanted to force Japan to make sure Netaji is brought from Germany to Singapore so that he could hand over INA to Subhash, and Subhash could take the leadership forward. Now, on June 10th, 1943, I'm not going into the details of that submarine journey. It raises goosebumps. Even yesterday, I must have heard that story and read that story 1,000 times. But I was again rereading Leonard Gordon to refresh my memory so that I could speak. But that story would take entire 2 hours, 3 hours of the session. So I will not go into that detail, but let me just concentrate on what it did after reaching Japan and Singapore. So we will find that on June 10, 1943, Bose met General Tojo, who was heading Japan at this point of time. Okay. Now he made a very good impression on him. Tojo really liked Netaji's very passionate nature, his confidence, and he believed that Bose's plan of attacking British forces was a sound one. But he was very hesitant on one thing, how and whether Japan should actually lend military help for this. He was prepared to give shelter to Netaji, but as far as material help is concerned, he was very doubtful, okay? Anyway, because the border between Burma and India is a very treacherous, geographically very treacherous. So if the Japanese army has to accompany Bose and come to India, it would mean actually braving very, very hostile territory. So though Tojo was not very certain whether Japan wanted to do that. But Bose was adamant. You see, he was so confident. And one thing I found out yesterday itself, though I knew all this already beforehand, India's independence was his sole concern. He refused to hear anything. And he would go any length to push the Japanese to serve that particular goal of his. Okay. Now, what he did was he tried to build what is called a Subhas Bose lobby in Tokyo itself. Okay, who would actually try to maneuver with Japanese elite classes so material help would come in. Eventually, from Tokyo, he flew into Singapore and he took over INA from Rash Bihari Bose. And there in that very big function that took place with 50,000 Indians attended, Rash Bihari Bose openly said, Subhas Chandra Bose is your president, your leader in the fight of India's independence. And there in that ceremony, Subhash Bose announced that he wants to organize a provisional government of free India. He wants to mobilize all of our forces effectively to lead the Indian revolution, to prepare the Indian people inside and outside India. He was calling for an armed struggle, okay, which he thought would be the culmination of numerous sacrifices that are taking place since 1883. See, here at this point, I will bring his relationship with Gandhiji very briefly. Now, he believed that we have to shed blood. The purest of warriors' blood has to be shed if India wants freedom. He looked at any negotiated effort of Indian National Congress as a sellout. He believed it's a sellout. It is not a proper independence. If proper independence has to come, it has to come through shedding of. By that time, a legend herself, tears were rolling down her face. And a young student, I was sitting there. I was not hearing the speaker. I was looking at her and thinking, This man has vanished in 1945. Just imagine Netaji's impact on this lady. She's still crying, thinking about this leader. So that would tell you something about why this man was called Netaji. He was a leader par excellence. Okay. So very briefly, now I will conclude. We do not have the time. See, he had grandiose plan. He was ready to die. This is something the British admitted, the Japanese admitted, his own soldiers admitted. He wanted to be a martyr. Okay, he was ready to die. He actually drove close to the Burma frontier at the risk of his life. Now, the Indian National Army came very close to Imphal, but the plan was to actually descend to the Assam Valley, because Netaji believed if the INA can enter Assam Valley, that would arouse the people of India, particularly of Bengal province, his motherland, okay? But that did not happen. But it was not so much his fault or INA's fault. INA had almost nothing, only light weapons, okay? The Japanese, by that time, the tide of the war was against Japan. Germany has surrendered, Mussolini has been hanged, okay? So they did not have the resource, but they still fought hand-to-hand combat, okay? But they could not enter Assam Valley. In Manipur, in fall, Indian tricolor flag was hoisted for the first time. After that, they had to retreat. So there are multiple reasons why Azad Hind Fauj could not fulfill the plan, but as far as dedication is concerned, as far as their patriotism is concerned, as far as Netaji's leadership is concerned, because even when Japanese decided to surrender, and the Japanese army was constantly pressurizing Netaji that you have to withdraw with your troop from the Burma frontier. He refused. He said, no, I'm not going anywhere. You withdraw, my soldiers would fight on. He could not do that eventually. After that, of course, he would not rest. He understood the dynamics of the war has completely changed. He would try to open up another front with Soviet Russia, but that is another story for another day. Let me conclude today here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Madhumita Saha, for your well-researched and moving discourse on one of the most illustrious and intriguing persona of India's freedom struggle, that is Subhash Chandra Bose. And you spoke with such a passion that it had given goosebumps to all of us. Thank you. Before I invite our esteemed guest, Dr. S.K. Pachori, to pay a befitting tribute to freedom fighters and their contribution to nation building, let me introduce Dr. S.K. Pachori. Dr. S.K. Pachori, IAS, is former Secretary to the Government of India and former Director General of National Productivity Council of India, New Delhi. As a young civil servant, Dr. Pachori has worked in Andhra Pradesh as District Collector and Secretary to the Government of Andhra Pradesh. Dr. Pachori, 1968 AP Cadre Officer, has worked as Secretary, Liberahan Ayodhya Committee of Inquiry. After his retirement from government service, Dr. Pachori has served as Visiting Professor and Director, Center for Good Governance at the MIT University, Noida, and Visiting Professor at Dixie State University, Utah, USA. He is prolific author and researcher. He has published a large number of papers in reputed journals on good governance, public administration, and rural development. He is associated with many reputed universities and institutions as governing council member and expert. He visited several countries across the globe. He is also the member of Board of Advisors of the Academy of Grassroots Studies and Research of India. Please welcome Dr. S.K. Pachori. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me to deliver this talk. Let me thank Dr. Ashok Chauhan, our beloved founder president, Dr. Atul Chauhan, the Chancellor of the University, Dr. Balvinder Shukla, the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Rajan Bakshi, the Director of the Institute of Defense Studies, and Dr. Nirupama Prakash, our Director of the EISS. Thank you so much. It's been a great privilege to be here to face such a magnificent audience, and I'll try my level best to give you a short summary. It can only be a summary because the subject is very wide, a tribute to freedom fighters and their contribution to the nation. To start with, we will start with 1857. Veer Savarkar, the great freedom fighter of India, was the first one who appropriately called the 1857 revolt as the first war of independence. Now that he wrote a book, but it was not published till 1908 or 1910. It was suppressed. Nobody really had the courage to call the Sepoy revolt as the first war of independence, but then it had many consequences. The Sepoys employed by the British rose in revolt. The British rulers were shell-shocked and never recovered from this revolt. It was an eye-opener for them that one day they will have to leave India. That was quite very much in their minds, that if the army revolts, well, what do you do? They had no other option. And in the 1857 revolt itself, there was a lot of bloodshed, a lot of reprisals, but most importantly, a rare unity amongst Indians of all shades who came together to fight the 1857 revolt. Then the early 20th century witnessed the birth of and the rise of the national movement. The pioneers of this movement were Bal Gangadhar Tilak in the West, who gave the slogan, "Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it." And this was something which has reverberated in the minds of all Indians ever since. Even today we talk about Swaraj. So this was the slogan given by Bal Gangadhar Tilak. And later on, he raised many slogans and many agitations. And he was incarcerated for 6 years. He was in prison for 6 years, from I think 1910 or somewhere to 1916. And in the north, we had Lala Lajpat Rai. We've already paid so many accolades to him. Another speaker has already described his activities, so I won't go into details. In Bengal, it was Aurobindo Ghosh, the great freedom fighter, and Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, who gave the call of the Vande Mataram slogan. Even today, Vande Mataram song is sung with great pride and great joy. So these are some of the contributions of the freedom fighters. The arrival of Gandhi brought a new chapter in the struggle of the freedom struggle, a new chapter. He infused life into the movement, in the words of the late Professor Bipin Chandra, who was also my professor. It saw the biggest mass movement of the 20th century. In the beginning of the 20th century, Gandhi's presence brought about the biggest mass movement, biggest mass struggle in the world, not only in India. But that was the significance of Gandhi's presence. And what had been only a symbolic and partial beginning spread deep down to the villages and into the capillaries of our system, capillaries of our country. Gandhiji realized that using force to fight the British is no use. So in response, he came out with the policy and his principle of non-violence. Non-violence to beat violence. Because the British ruled India with the aid of the army, civil servants, and the police. So how to fight them? So he used the weapon of non-violence to struggle against violence. That was the unique thing about Mahatma Gandhi. Now, since we are in a university, I want to quote from a speech that Mahatma Gandhi gave in Banaras Hindu University in February 4, 1916. He said, "If we are to receive self-government, we shall have to take it. We shall never be granted self-government." This was an audience of students in Banaras Hindu University that he talked in 1916. So I thought it is relevant, since we are talking in a university today and talking to university students, that you should know that one of his first few speeches in the country was in Banaras. to the university students. A significant milestone occurred. I'm not going into the non-cooperation movement and the various phases of the national movement, but I'm only concentrating on the individual achievements of some great freedom fighters. The significant milestone occurred in 1929, December 1929, when Nehru was the president of the Congress session in Lahore. He mentioned in this session, that there is only one goal ahead of us, which is full freedom. The declaration of Purna Swaraj was proposed at the Congress session on 19th December 1929. It was decided to observe 26th January 1930 as total Independence Day of Purna Swaraj. So this was a major landmark. And it was Nehru's contribution that he radicalized the idea of freedom from mere Swaraj to Purna Swaraj. This was Nehru's contribution. The Rowlatt Act disturbances had led to a massive upsurges and saw the emergence of Bhagat Singh. We've already heard very good talk about Bhagat Singh, so I won't go into any details. But he was the first one to throw a bomb in the Central Legislative Assembly. Nobody had ever done that, but Bhagat Singh had the courage to do that. The next phase saw the emergence of Subhash Chandra Bose and the Hind Azad Force, the INA, to fight the British forces in India. This movement of Subhash Chandra Bose really was the backbone of the British rule in India. They could not conceive of an India where the armed forces would rise against them. And this directly led to the Indian naval officers who raised a revolt against their superiors in Bombay in 1946. There were large-scale riots by the naval serving officers against their superiors. They were all British officers. So this was a very major landmark, but it's not much talked about. But when the British saw that, look, we're collapsing everywhere, the navy is against us, there were divisions in the army. So they had nothing to really lose, and they had only one option, but to quit India. And the role of Sardar Patel must be mentioned. He was one of the great Democrats. Mostly he was, he led a lot of agitations, non-cooperation movement of Mahatma Gandhi, but also he also assisted in the drafting of the Indian Constitution along with Ambedkar. So we have not mentioned anything about Ambedkar, but Ambedkar was the leader of the untouchables, the Harijans, and he brought about a rare equality amongst Indians by talking about bringing justice to the lowest sections of society in India. So Ambedkar and Patel worked together. Patel brought about the integration of the 562 states of India and the unity of the civil services. The unity of the civil services was that the ICS, the Indian Civil Service, which was run by the British, was abolished, and the Indian Administrative Service came into existence. So I will only, taking an inspiration from what our Prime Minister said yesterday at the ramparts of Red Fort, he talked about change. Mahatma Gandhi mentioned this long time back. This is one of his favorite quotes. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. An ounce of patience is worth more than a ton of preaching. An ounce of patience is worth more than a ton of preaching. In a gentle way, you can shake the world. In a gentle way, you can shake the world. Our Prime Minister also talked yesterday about shaking the world and making India number one or number two in the world. The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated. So recently, as you know, cheetahs have been brought to India. This is a great new innovations. So this is the new thing that has happened. Mahatma Gandhi's other great contribution was, he was a great person to recognize the importance of symbols, the charkha. The charkha was his great companion, and because of the charkha, they went into the spinning wheel, and you had the Sarvodaya movement, the charkha movement, the spinning of cloth, So that was one of the things. The other thing was the salt march, the salt march. So all handloom industries have grown up because of Mahatma Gandhi. Let me tell you that. Again, he was greatly assisted by Ambedkar. The other thing which none of the speakers spoke about was the emancipation of women. Women joined the national movement in a very big way. And some of the names that I thought should be mentioned is Sarojini Naidu, Annie Besant, Kasturba Gandhi. Kasturba Gandhi ably assisted Mahatma Gandhi right till the end. She had a very early death, but she was the, you can say, the lieutenant of Mahatma Gandhi during the latter part of the freedom movement. So one of the major concerns and the major concern of Mahatma Gandhi was also emancipation of women. And the other contribution of Pandit Nehru after he became the Prime Minister was the partition riots. The partition riots were terrible. A lot of people were killed. A lot of people were displaced. There were a lot of refugees. He brought about a lot of communal harmony in the country. And all the bloodshed that took place, Nehru was mainly responsible. And I'll conclude here. Mahatma Gandhi also did a lot for the untouchables, and he was a great social reformer. I think after Raja Ram Mohan Roy, the next great social reformer India had was Mahatma Gandhi, because he realized he was living in a Bhangi colony in Delhi. That was one of his permanent residences. Whenever he came to Delhi, he would go to the Bhangi colony and live there. So that was his great contribution and bringing about equality in society. So I'll end here, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your befitting tribute to freedom fighters and their contribution to nation building, which has been very inspiring and exciting for all of us. With this, we come to the concluding session of today's seminar, that is freedom fighter and their contribution to the nation building. And for concluding remark, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Nirupama Prakash, Director AISS, and let me introduce her. Dr. Nirupama Prakash is Professor of Sociology and Gender Studies and Director, Amity Institute of Social Sciences. She was invited as visiting professor to teach summer courses on gender, socio-culture and health issues at Department of Art and Humanities, University of Maryland at College Park, and Department of Global Gender Studies, University of Buffalo, State University of New York, USA. She served as a consultant on cross-culture competence at Office of Diversity and Inclusion, University of Maryland at College Park, USA. She was invited as resource person to the first meeting of Asian and Spanish women and as keynote speaker on gender and culture of peace at the Roundtable on Gender Equality and Development, organized by Casa Asia, Barcelona, Spain. During July 2011, she presented her work at the Women's World 2011 Conference, Ottawa, Canada, and at the Literature and Translation Conference at Monash University, Melbourne, Australia. Dr. Nirupama has contributed to research at national and international level. She was also nominated to participate in international workshop on empowerment of women through science and technology interventions held at Tehran, Iran. In the recent past, she was invited by UNESCO Paris to participate in symposium on International Mother Language Day. Professor Nirupama Prakash has many research papers on her credit and has been invited to various national and international forums to present papers on social and women issues. Please welcome Professor Dr. Nirupama Prakash.
Thank you, Professor Bakshi. Well, with gratitude to Honorable Founder President, sir, our very dynamic Chancellor, sir, and our respected Vice Chancellor, Madam, General Gadyok, sir, and Brigadier Tiwari, Brigadier General Bakshi, sir, and also our distinguished panelists and on the dais and off the dais, dear students and faculty members. I would not take much of your time because you've been here since morning, and I know it's been a very, very informative, various sessions that have come up with the joint initiative
of AIDSS and AISS, wherein we've had mutual consultations and as to how best we could really organize this event. Now, all I would do is to give you some takeaway from what you've heard this morning till afternoon. So one is, dear students, patriotism is a human value. Honorable Vice Chancellor Madam also spoke on human value. Now, all amongst other empathy and compassion and all, patriotism is something which each one of us should be very, very proud to inculcate. And that is where all these events help to further nurture that. Diversity is democracy. Practice peaceful resistance to come up with any injustice. Yes, you should not tolerate any injustice, but there are ways to be able to combat that. Courage and sacrifice of freedom fighters are source of inspiration. So all that you've heard from Mahatma Gandhi ji to Rani Jhansi Bai to Sardar Vallabh Patel and innumerable, like everyone's talked about the well-known heroes and these unsung heroes and the heroines as well, where females have played a very, very important role. So draw the inspiration from them. Unity is India's strength, and unity amongst diversity is our strength. So be proud of that. And collective participation always helps. That is something where, it's a like-minded and everyone's working towards a cause. So with a lot of consensus and togetherness, one can overcome all the issues that would be detrimental not to having that. And passion with courage is something which we must practice. So by and large, these are all non-violence. You've all been reading in your classes, in your political science, history classes. But these are some of the takeaways which you should be practicing actually. So I would not give you any lecture or sermon, but just for you to, make some points and practice it. Take it forward. And you are the youth who would take forward the torch of, taking our civilization, our country ahead. So thank you very much, and very proud to have organized with this join. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your comprehensive, well-rounded concluding remark with important takeaways for student and faculty alike. Now I request Ms. Devyani Sharma, January 2020 batch PhD scholar at AIDSS, to give the customary vote of thanks. Ms. Devyani, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Good afternoon to all. The nation celebrates Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, 76 years of independence, remembering and paying homage to our freedom fighters who made great sacrifices for the freedom of our nation. The fight against colonial rule in India constitutes unique narrative, one which is not blemished by violence, rather a narrative full of variegated stories of valor, bravery, satyagraha, dedication, and sacrifices across the length and breadth of the subcontinent. These stories compose the rich Indian culture, heritage, and traditions. Today, we dedicated our efforts to remember our freedom fighters and their sacrifices. On this auspicious day, we bow to pay our obeisance and gratitude. Celebration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav and paying befitting tribute to our gallant freedom fighters has been possible because of the great motivation we received from our venerable founder president, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, Honorable Chancellor, Dr. Atul Chauhan, and Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Balvinder Shukla. And we are deeply thankful to them. We are also thankful to our guest panelists, Dr. S.K. Pachori and Major General Devesh Gaur, for their valuable insight while paying tribute to freedom fighters and their contribution to nation building and remembering Rashtrapita Mahatma Gandhi. I also thank and appreciate the AIDSS student panelists Sayani Mondal, Jagriti Goswami, and Kritika Rao for their insightful talk on the Shaheed-e-Azam Bhagat Singh, Ram Prasad Bismil, and Aruna Asaf Ali, the grand old lady of Indian independence. I also thank and appreciate the AISS panelist student Amrinder Pratap Singh for the discerning talk on Loh Purush Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. My special thanks to the learned AISS faculty member, Dr. Swati Shastri, Dr. Pushparaj Singh, Dr. Madhumita Saha for their well-researched and comprehensive talk on Jhansi Ki Rani Lakshmi Bai, Punjab Keshri Lala Lajpat Rai, and Subhash Chandra Bose and Indian National Army. We are profoundly thankful to Lieutenant General S.K. Gediok, DG, AIDSS, for his regular guidance and motivation. I thank Brigadier Dr. Anand Kumar Tiwari, Director AIDSS, and Professor Dr. Nirupama Prakash, Director AISS, for their noble efforts in providing the opportunities to all members of Amity family to pay a reverence to freedom fighters through this seminar. My special thanks to Colonel Dr. Rajan Bakshi, Director ACDSA, who planned and orchestrated this event with perfect coordination. I also thank the coordinating staff and IT support staff who have made it possible to celebrate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav in a befitting manner. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, all the students. Ultimately, you have held the ground and you have listened to everyone. I'm more than sure that all of you must have learned something out of it and there are some lessons to take home. Thank you very much, all the panelists. Thank you very much, sir. Puchori sir, Dr. Puchori sir, Nirupama madam, all the very best. And I think with this, we conclude the session. Thank you, Vice Chancellor madam, for listening very patiently throughout the seminar. Thanks a lot.